My name's Hannah, and I'm a butterfly warrior. This video is part 1 of a 2-part series talking about my lupus diagnosis story. Now in this video we're going to cover the straight up facts. One night in October of 2017, I went to bed a normal child, and I woke up the next morning, voila, as a butterfly warrior. That's not really how that happened. Looking back at it, I probably started having symptoms around the beginning or middle of September. One of my first symptoms I remember was joint pain, particularly in my shoulders. Now over time this joint pain eventually progressed from my shoulders to my hips, knees, ankles, elbows, wrists, fingers, and back. It got to the point where I was struggling to walk down hallways at school, I was unable to get in and out of my car by myself, and I couldn't open doors because I was unable to grab the handles. Like I said, this didn't happen overnight, but one morning in September I woke up with shoulder pain, and by the end of September it had progressed greatly. One of the next symptoms I remember experiencing were headaches. These headaches were often accompanied by blurred vision and lightheadedness. These headaches made school very difficult because I was struggling to read the words in my textbook and the lights were very bright for my eyes. Another symptom I experienced that ended up taking away a lot of my day was fatigue. I felt like I was sleeping more than I was awake throughout the day. I stopped doing karate class because I was too tired to show up, and the joint pain just made it impossible. I stopped hanging out with my friends because, like I said, I was too tired, I was in too much pain. These few weeks of my life were basically spent sleeping. Most of the time when I would wake up from naps, my face would look very flushed or broken out. Little did I know that I was experiencing a butterfly rash, which was one of the main things that helped my doctors pinpoint that I had lupus. Now lastly, one of the worst symptoms I remember were the sores in my mouth. I had about 2 or 3 smaller ones on the insides of my cheek, but the worst one was on the roof of my mouth. It made eating so painful that I'd rather not eat than deal with the pain of eating. Because I was eating less, I ended up losing almost 15 pounds from the time my symptoms started to when I was diagnosed. Around the end of September, I finally went to my family doctor and we told him all of the things that had been happening. He said that my symptoms sounded like I might have juvenile rheumatoid arthritis or possibly diabetes since it ran in my dad's family. He decided to take some blood and he was going to do more testing and let us know when he had results. On Friday, October 6th, we got the call. No, it wasn't the call saying I had lupus. I'm not there yet, don't get ahead of me. Like I was saying, we got a call saying that we should come in to hear the results. He said that my results were pointing very strongly towards leukemia, but he said that he thinks there might also be a possibility that I had something called lupus. Now at the time, I admit, I had no idea what lupus was. So all I was hearing was I might have cancer or some other unknown scary disease. He took more blood and he said he would send my blood and results to Duke Children's Hospital in Durham, North Carolina and see what those specialists think. On October 11th, I got the call that changed my life. Yes, now it's the lupus call. Between the 6th and the 11th, I did so much research trying to figure out more about leukemia and what lupus even was. On Tuesday, October 17th, I started my first treatment at Duke Children's Hospital. That day I had so many tests done. As you may know from my video where I talked about what lupus is, many organs can be affected. So while I was at Duke that day, they did tests to check my heart, lungs, liver, and kidneys. I also got my first round of steroid medication through IV. Which, if you don't know what that is, that's just basically when they stick a needle in you, and then they hook you up to a bag, and the bag has the medicine go into your blood. I went home at the end of the day, but I kept the IV in, because a nurse was going to be coming to my house for the next 2 days to administer more IV treatments. That week, I had also started another steroid called prednisone. Prednisone is supposed to help your adrenal gland produce certain hormones to help fight inflammation, which is the main cause of a lot of the symptoms from lupus. Because of these 2 medications, I was able to wake up that Thursday morning with no joint pain, and I was full of so much energy. The sores in my mouth were already disappearing, so trust me, I was eating a lot. On Friday, October 20th, I woke up feeling great. So great that we decided to go out for dinner that night. On the way home from dinner, I started shivering, but I wasn't cold. The shivering turned into shaking, and it eventually progressed where it looked like I was having a seizure. When I got home, my parents took my temperature, and I had a fever 104 degrees. I also developed a very consistent dry cough. So my parents took me to the nearest hospital, and after getting some blood drawn and a chest x-ray, it was shown that I had pneumonia. The 2 medications I mentioned earlier are immunosuppressing medications, which mean they make your immune system weaker. Now if you remember, lupus is when you have an overactive immune system. So you want to take medicine to lower it so that it stops attacking your body. But because of this, you can easily catch things, like pneumonia. So the one day I was at Duke Hospital, I caught something. Like that. Because my fever was so high, the doctors went ahead and put an IV in me and put me on fluids to try and reduce my fever. After a few hours, my fever finally went down with the help of some other medications, and I stayed in a room overnight. So it turns out not only did I have pneumonia in my lungs, but it was bacterial pneumonia, and the bacteria had spread into my bloodstream. Because of this, I was going to have to stay in the hospital even longer until my blood kind of cleared up. So that Saturday morning, a nurse came in, took my blood, stayed in the hospital the rest of the day. A doctor came, they listened to my lungs, they asked how I was doing. Later that night, my fever went up again. So they had to try and get it back down, which they did. So next morning, nurse comes in, takes my blood again, and that night, my fever goes up again. They get it back down again. But very early Monday morning, my fever went up again. Not only did my fever go back up, but I was struggling to breathe because I was coughing so much. So not only did they have to give me medicine to put my fever down, but I also had to get an oxygen treatment that morning. So a little more into Monday, they decided to transfer me to Duke Children's Hospital. Ooh. So that way, my lupus doctors could treat my lupus while also treating the pneumonia. So I got transferred by ambulance to Duke Children's Hospital, and I had my own room there. Now, nothing against the hospital I was staying at, but it felt almost like a prison. I really loved my room at Duke. Not only was it bigger than the other hospital room, but the rooms also had a PlayStation 4, so that was a great way to kill time. Now, I'm by no means a gamer, but it's a great pastime. So every morning they continued to draw labs and check my blood. My fever only came back that first night I was at Duke, but it never came back again. We met with my lupus doctors and we talked about some of the symptoms I was having, and I got prescribed some of the medications that I'm on now. We met with the pediatrician talking about my pneumonia, and just a lot of other doctors. On Wednesday, October 25th, they had a few events going on at the hospital. The first one being teen night. All of the patients on that floor who were 13 and older all met together, and we had a very intense Uno match. It was a lot of fun to be able to get out of my room and talk with people other than just, my parents who were staying with me. Then when I got back from teen night, they told me that they had a therapy dog walking around visiting all the kids. I remember his name. His name was Foster, and he was the cutest little dog. He saw the younger kids first so he could play with them, and so he was really tired by the time he got to me, so all he really did was lay in my lap and sleep. But honestly, that was all I wanted. Here's a picture of Foster. Look at him, he's so cute. When Foster had left my room, I went ahead and did some crafts that the people who were running teen night gave to us. It was around Halloween time, so there were some sugar skulls and a black cat, stuff like that. It seems childish, but it was a lot better than just sitting in the bed doing nothing. Like I said, it was getting around Halloween time, so that next day I also decorated the whiteboard that was on my door. Here's what my board looked like. I'm pretty proud of that. I was really missing art class at school, and I got to do that, and it was great. Later on Thursday, October 26th, my doctors told me that I still had really low iron levels in my blood. They said they weren't really sure why the levels were so low and that I might be bleeding in my lungs. Now, because I had pneumonia, they couldn't do a chest x-ray to check for blood in my lungs because it would all look cloudy and the same. So my doctors told me that if my iron did not reach a certain level whenever they went to draw my labs the next day, they would have to put me under, stick a camera down my trachea, into my lungs, and look for bleeding. Now, thank goodness the next morning my iron had gotten right above that mark that they wanted it, so I didn't have to do that. Thank you. They wanted to keep me for one more night just to make sure that my iron would maintain its level, which it did. So on Saturday, October 28th, I finally got to go home. Now, I wasn't feeling leaps and bounds better because I was still very tired from the pneumonia. I was still coughing, my chest still hurt at times, but I was just glad to be home. My lupus doctors saw that I had some kidney involvement from the lupus, so they went ahead and scheduled a kidney biopsy for November the 10th. A kidney biopsy is whenever they kind of make a little cut in your back, and then they take a spring-loaded needle and your kidney, and it just kind of pokes it and takes out a little sample of it. They'll then take that little sample and kind of look at it under a microscope to see how much your kidneys have been affected by the lupus. So I had that done on November 10th, and I had to stay in the hospital for one night just to make sure that there weren't any complications from it. So I went home on the morning of November 11th. Over this period of about 2 months, I got put on a lot of the medications that I am now that have helped stabilize my condition. Now, I consider myself extremely lucky. As I mentioned in my What is Lupus video, it takes on average 6 to 7 years for someone to get properly diagnosed with lupus. And I was diagnosed in just a mere 2 or 3 months. So I would like to thank all of my doctors who made it possible to get me diagnosed in such a short amount of time and have helped me get to the great condition I'm in now. So in this video, I covered all of the facts of my lupus diagnosis story. But in part 2, I'm going to cover more of what was going through my head and all of my feelings during this process. So thank you guys so much for watching, and just remember, we're still alive. It's not over yet, so let's make the most of it. Bye! Yeah, whoa. I love that song so much.